I have lived independently since I was little. It was a harsh yet meaningful custom among my cricket family. Mother often reminded us, you children must learn to forage alone to get used to it, lest you become dependent and achieve nothing in life. Therefore, with every new brood, we had to totter off to live on our own after only 3 days with Mother. This time, Mother led my two brothers and me to a field on the other side, where she had painstakingly dug and prepared neat little burrows. I was the youngest, the smallest, so Mother kindly left a small bundle of tender grass at my door. I wasn't sad at all. On the contrary, I felt quite refreshed. Living freely and independently was a great pleasure. I crawled into my burrow, diligently digging and enlarging it into a big den, making a luxurious bed, and then digging additional shortcuts, back doors, and upper passages, ready to escape through a different route in case of danger. That was the method of self-protection that the elders in the family always taught. Every day was the same. Work in the morning, a temporary rest in the evening. I would go to the entrance, join my neighbors, and sing the sunset song together. When night fell, our whole cricket neighborhood would gather densely in the middle of the field, eating wet grass, drinking dewdrops, and feasting and singing merrily. Truthfully, a life like that was quite peaceful, but what was fun at first gradually became boring later on. Because I ate regularly and worked moderately, I grew up very quickly. Before long, I had become a robust young male cricket. My plump, shiny forelegs and my sharp claws on my feet, when I drew my legs up and kicked them against the grass tips, they snapped flat as if a knife had just sliced through them. My wings were now a long coat reaching down to the tip of my tail. When I strolled, my whole body shimmered with a glossy dark brown sheen that one could use as a mirror. I was very handsome. I took great pride in myself among my community, especially my long, curled antennae, which gave me a very heroic appearance. Every now and then, I would solemnly raise both my legs to stroke my antennae. I walked with an imposing swagger, putting on airs by twitching my leg joints and shaking my antennae up and down, adopting the style of a martial arts expert. I was extremely aggressive. I dared to pick fights with everyone in the neighborhood. When I spoke loudly, everyone would yield. They respected me more than they feared me, but I mistook this for no one daring to even breathe a word against me. I thought I was brilliant, believing I was about to become the best in the world. I shouted at the grasshoppers hiding under the grass stalks and teased the clumsy water strider down in the swamp. Alas, that arrogant and overbearing temper was nothing less than a wicked flame burning within my heart. Next door to me was the burrow of Choat cricket. The name I gave him was enough to show my ridicule and condescension. Choat was about my age, but he was naturally weak, so I looked down upon him. He was thin and lanky like an opium addict. Already a young adult, his wings were only short, leaving both sides of his ribs exposed like a person wearing a vest with nothing underneath. His antennae were short, just a tiny stub, and his face always looked dull and vacant. Furthermore, he lived hand to mouth, which was really just because he was constantly sick and couldn't work. The burrow he lived in was only dug shallowly, near the surface of the earth. One day, I went over for a visit and found his home messy and disorganized, so I scolded him. "How can you live so carelessly, my friend? If someone were to come and destroy this, you'd be dead immediately. Your back must be humping right up against the surface. If the kestrel looks down and pecks once, it'll definitely hit you right in the back, and that'll be the end of you. Oh, my dear friend, you're old enough, but you lack sense." Choat cricket looked at me, his voice sorrowful. "Since you care about me that much, why don't you help me dig a passage to your place so I can run over if someone comes to bully me when I'm in trouble?" Before he could finish his sentence, I raised my mandibles, let out a long, clear hiss, and with a look of disdain, I cursed. "Humph! A passage to my house? That's rich! You stink like an owl. How can I tolerate that? Just stop that tearful, constant drizzle of a song. Digging a shallow nest serves you right." I left without a care in the world. Back then, I was self-satisfied. I only listened to my own mouth and didn't heed anyone else. One afternoon, I stood outside my burrow watching the sunset. The vast pond in front of me attracted many egrets, cranes, night herons, and cormorants coming to forage. Seeing Miss Kukal flying up to perch near my burrow, my mischievous side flared up again. Although it didn't concern me, I decided to play a trick on Miss Cook. I waited until Miss Cook was preening her wings and had her head turned away. Then I raised my voice in a clear, high-pitched song of mockery. Miss Cook flinched, her wings jerking, her eyes wide, and she spread her wings. I immediately darted into my burrow, climbed onto my bed, rested on my back with my legs crossed, thinking gleefully, "You can be mad all you want. Bang your head against the wall to make it smaller. No matter how small you get, you won't be able to crawl into my nest." Truly, disaster came. A disaster that an egoistic creature could not foresee. Miss Cook didn't see me, but she did see Choat Cricket fussing around his burrow entrance. Miss Cook immediately let out a loud squawk and drove her iron-like beak down. Even though he had burrowed inside, Choat Cricket was hit by 2 strikes, his spine twisted, and he rolled out crying out loudly. I, hiding at the very bottom of my earth chamber, was terrified and lay completely still. Knowing Miss Cook had left, I cautiously crawled out. Seeing me, Choat Cricket wept miserably. I was panic-stricken and knelt down, lifting Choat's head as I lamented. "I had no idea it would come to this. I regret it so much. I regret it deeply. Your death is solely due to my reckless foolishness." Choat Cricket could no longer get up. He lay faintly breathing. But he still looked at me and spoke a single sober sentence. "It's all right. I'm too weak anyway. Death is fine. But before I close my eyes, I advise you, in life, if you have a reckless, senseless temper and a brain that doesn't think, sooner or later, you will bring disaster upon yourself." Then Choat Cricket took his last breath. I was deeply saddened, both heartbroken and remorseful for my sin. If I hadn't teased Miss Cook, Choat wouldn't have been hurt. And me too. If I hadn't been quick enough to run into my burrow, I would have been killed as well. I carried Choat Cricket's body and buried him in a bushy patch of grass, raising a large grave mound. I stood silently for a long time, contemplating the lesson I had just received. That lesson was not just about the danger of arrogance, but also about irresponsibility and selfishness. When I mocked and refused to help Choat dig his burrow deeper, I pushed him toward death. Choat's death was not only the consequence of Miss Cook, but also the direct result of my callousness and pride. From then on, I realized that physical strength is not something to impose on or hurt others, but to protect and build. Choat Cricket's death enlightened me, opening a new chapter, the chapter of thoughtfulness, humility, and beginning to care for others. That was truly the first lesson of life that I would remember forever. Thank you for staying with me. If you love this story, please support me by subscribing and hitting the like button. Your companionship is the motivation for me to continue telling more beautiful things.